Hi there, it's Sophie Aldred here, and I played Ace in Doctor Who, and I just want to say hello there to Dr. Freedom.
All right. Okay, hello, everyone out there. I'm Dr. Freedom, and I have the very distinguished honor of getting to talk to Sophie Aldred, who a lot of people know as, oh, heck, many, many different roles, Treefu Tom, Dennis the Menace, and there's a lot of people who seem to know you from this Doctor Who show. No.
Yeah, what is that again?
But one of the things I keep hearing about is this new thing you're on. It's called Strangeness in Space. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Well, it is, or it will be, a free downloadable audio podcast. And it's a sci-fi comedy this time, so different for me. Comedy audio adventure, which takes place in space. And I'm doing it with a couple of friends who I was at university with many years ago. And we had, the story is that we had a reunion for our university last year. It was something like 35 years or something since we'd been at university, maybe more, I don't know. And we were kind of sitting with Claire Eden, who's, well, she's been an agent for a long time. She's produced a podcast which people may be familiar with called Minister of Chance. She was executive producer on that. And she just said, do you know what? Why don't we work together? And we just thought, that's a good idea. So Trev and Simon, who are great friends, who I haven't seen that much of, but they had a bit of notoriety in the 1980s as well, and 90s, and they were on a Saturday morning show over here, one of those kind of kids Saturday morning, students coming in from the night before, and they were a kind of cult figures. They were a comedy duo called Trev and Simon, and they used to play these kind of crazy characters, and their humour is quite surreal and off the wall and childish, and I find it incredibly funny. And they came up with some scripts that Claire and I we really laughed at them when we first read them, and that's how it came about, really. And then we decided that the best way to go about doing something was to crowdfund, like Claire had experience with Minister of Chance. So she kind of put that into action. And what's great about it is that we have control over the material. So Trev and Simon, we haven't had to go through a commissioning process. We haven't had to wait for production meetings. We just kind of send about 20 emails to each other at least a day going, oh, I've had a good idea, let's do this. Or what about doing that? You know, it's sort of, it's almost like, it reminds me of when I was a kid, really, putting on shows and, you know, with the local neighbourhood children. And it's got a real sort of freshness about it to have to do it that way, rather than have to wait for meetings and commissioning and all that sort of stuff. So that's how it's come about, really. And where we're at with it is that we've recorded episode 1, which we've completed the crowdfunding for that in 2 weeks. So we hit our target 2 weeks early, which was just amazing. So if you're one of those backers, then thank you so much, because it was just amazing, the support that we had. And we half funded a second episode as well. So we've managed to get the most amazing people on board with us, including Carol Cleveland, who's some people might know her as the female Python, Monty Python days. She came in and literally did a few lines for us. You know, it was just great. We have Peter Guinness, who was in Alien 3. We have Barnaby Edwards, who people will know from the new series of Doctor Who. He plays the main Daleks. Yeah, just all sorts of people. Doon McKeekan, who I don't know if American audiences will know her, but she's a very funny comedian who we were also at university with. So that it's all keep it in the family. and another guy called Rufus Hound, who's a very good actor and very funny comedian. Again, I'm not sure whether he's crossed the pond yet, but he's great as well. And he's playing one of a brilliant character who's a rhinocer biker. I'll leave that to your imagination to decide what a rhinocer biker looks like.
Also, staying in the present a bit, I've also heard that you're doing a horror film short called The Sitter.
Yeah, that's right. Well, again, that is a friend of mine, Rory McDonnell, and he and I did a spin-off Doctor Who thing many years ago called Shakedown, not long after I'd finished doing the series. I was playing a very different character. I was playing a kind of spoilt princess. We filmed it all on board a ship which is moored in the Thames called HMS Belfast. It was the most amazing location. So I got to know Rory then, and we vaguely kept in touch over the years. And he's gradually stopped acting, and he started directing his own short films, and he works for Rain Dance Festival. And he rang me out of the blue, or emailed me and said, I've got a little part for you in a short film I'm doing. Would you like to do it? And I said, yeah, great. I'll do that. And it's a kind of, well, it's new for me because it's technically horror, I suppose. And it was just great fun to do. It was lovely to do something in Vision again. And the year before that, actually, I did another short sort of cameo role in again a science fiction comedy film called Search for Simon, and that's a wonderful film. It's done a lot of festivals, won prizes, and so on. And yeah, it's worth a look if you look it up on the internet.
Okay. I know you've been keeping up with the new show of Doctor Who. Have you had a chance to watch Series 8?
I've watched bits of them all, from all the series. I love Peter Capaldi's Doctor. I think it works really well with Clara. I think there have been some. What's great about the new series is that you can absolutely hate it one week and think, wow, that story was really lame. Although, funny enough, I never do, but I hear people who do. And then you can absolutely love it the following week. I mean, I particularly liked, I'm not quite sure about seasons, but I particularly liked The Mummy on the Train. I thought that was an excellent story.
Oh, I love that one. That's one of my favorites for season 8.
Yeah.
Really good. How do you think the character Ace would react to working with Peter Capaldi's Doctor?
That's an interesting question because he's quite kind of quite a dark Doctor, like where Sylvester was going. I think she, like Clara, would take a bit of time to adjust to the new persona. But I think that she would kind of like the slightly off the wall, it's almost like he forgets who he is sometimes. And, I think she'd quite like that. She'd be trying to look after him still, try to be his minder. I think he's kind of a bit crazier than Sylvester's Doctor, if that's possible. I don't know. So, yeah, it would be an interesting combination.
Okay, if you could write Ace into the show right now, say being around the age, a few years on, where do you think she'd be in her life, and how would you write her? What would she be doing with her life now?
Well, it's interesting because I did like the idea that Mark Platt came up with, which was going to be what was going to happen to Ace in the following season that we never got to make, which was that she was going to go off to Gallifrey and train to be a Time Lord. And I mean, can you imagine Ace on Gallifrey? I think that would be great fun to see. But then we've heard in the Sarah Jane Adventures that Ace, well, somebody called Dorothy was working for a charity called Earth Aid. And I can see Ace as a sort of direct action girl, like a kind of Greenpeace activist in her kind of space version of the Rainbow Warrior, going around space and righting wrongs and, getting into some serious hot water at the same time. So yeah, I think that would be good too.
Okay, back when the classic series ended, did any of you even imagine that you would be revisiting these characters again in the future?
Oh my goodness, I mean, no way. If you told me back then in 1989 that, that I'd still be playing Ace on Big Finish, that I'd still at the age of 52 be playing this 16-year-old. I mean, it just doesn't compute, it's amazing. I'm incredibly blessed to be still playing the character because I love her. I think she's such a big part of my life, even still now. So yeah, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do that.
All right. Lady Gallifrey wanted me to ask, and this is kind of an episodic question.
Mm.
She wanted to know in The Curse of Fenric, what was it like playing your character when she finds out that the baby we've seen throughout this whole episode is her mother?
Oh yeah, I loved that twist. I thought that was so clever because the thing is, Ian Briggs wrote Ace in Dragonfire. There's this kind of slightly lame story that she gets blown up onto Iceworld because of a time storm. And, everybody thought, oh yeah, what on earth does that mean? And then, of course, in Curse of Fenric, there it is. It's all explained. The Doctor's actually kind of manipulated her to be there and and then for his own ends has introduced her to the baby that was going to be her mother. I think it's wonderful, and the whole sort of it just is part of that sort of rich tapestry that was those last couple of seasons where the Doctor is taking Ace around the universe and kind of being her mentor, really teaching her about herself and you know getting her to come to terms with her past, um, instructing her. It's a little bit like Pygmalion in a way, that sort of story, which was picked up on in Ghostlight a little. That sort of whole thing about, yeah, this young girl and this teacher figure. So I love that.
Yeah, that's why I like about the new show. The doctor companion relationship reminds me a lot of back then because it's more of like a fatherly and instructor, in a way kind of relationship. So I kind of like the way they're going with that. My friend Tim Wells from Texas just wanted to know, how did the show's revival in 2005 affect you in any way?
How did the show affect me?
Yeah, with it coming
Um,
back.
Sorry.
With it coming back, did it affect your life in any way, or?
Oh, I see. Oh, that's so funny. Do you know what I thought you meant? I thought you meant the story Survival in that we did in 1989, which kind of finished off the. Yeah, no, I was so delighted when it came back, because it's such a part of British culture, and now, I mean, America has always embraced Doctor Who, and it was just such a shame that this format, which is a kind of such an enduring format, what other show can you have any actor playing the role, any actor playing the companion? You can go anywhere in space and time. The the sky or the universe really is the limit. Um, so I was delighted when it came back, and I just think that Russell T Davies was exactly the right person to bring it back. It was perfect. And he, of course, was the only person who could have done it because he's the only person who had enough kind of clout at the time at the BBC. The BBC really wanted him. And so he kind of used it as a bargaining tool, which was very clever. And aren't we lucky?
Okay, my friend Tim Keep, we call him Beefhead from the UK. He just wanted to know, for all the cons you attend and all the people you've met around the world, was there anyone that you were generally starstruck by?
Oh, I'm always being starstruck. It's funny. I mean, people sort of tend to assume, I think, that just because you're in that world yourself, you just kind of take it naturally that you meet people. Um, let's think. I mean, all the guests we had on Doctor Who, I was I was constantly thrilled to meet people like Sheila Hancock, Sylvia Sims, Dinsdale Landon, Bonnie Langford, all amazing people who had been her household names who I'd been watching as I grew up, to be actually working with them. So amazing. Um, and then I guess at conventions, I mean, people from my own childhood, like John Pertwee, Nicholas Courtney, all the unit people. I remember going to my very first convention in London and walking into the green room, and there they were in the corner, John Pertwee and Richard Franklin, John Levine and Nick Courtney. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's my childhood in that corner. And I was completely starstruck. So yes, I'm always, humbled. I think, loads of people from Brian Blessed to even, David Tennant, who I worked with doing A Big Finish before he was Doctor Who, and then of course meeting him again doing Tree Fu Tom. There was a little bit of me that was, wow, this amazing guy. He's a phenomenon. He really helped to solidify the new Doctor Who. Well, he did, Christopher Eccleston launched it, and David actually grounded it in the nation's psyche again.
Okay, just a couple more because I know you're running a little bit low on time today. I had a person under the name Dr. Hooniverse. He wanted to know how do you feel when you're working with other companions of Big Finish, such as Philip Oliver, Lisa Bowerman, and
I absolutely love it. It's so great to be working, sort of bouncing off people, to be kind of, mind you, that sounds a bit funny, doesn't it? Like we're kind of really bouncing off people, but you know what I mean? It's lovely to have a foil. I mean, especially like with Phil. It was great because it took Ace in a whole new direction, meeting Hex, because she had always been the one who was learning, who was mentored, and now here's somebody who knows nothing about the universe, who hasn't had any experience. Ace is a little bit older, a little bit wiser, has been around the universe, and she's showing him. She's kind of the ropes, and she's, there's also the chance for a bit of a flirtation, which she'd not really had much before, and a sort of aren't they going to get together, that sort of thing. So all that, absolutely great fun. Yeah.
Okay, one question from my friend Lady Neo. What was it you like your first day on the set, and where did you get the patches where did they get the patches for Ace's jacket from? Do you know?
Oh yeah, well, the very first day was when I went to the rehearsal rooms to do the read through, and that was just bizarre because I walked into this very large room and everybody's sitting around a table, and there I see Bonnie Langford, Tonya Sober, Pat Quinn, Tony Selby, and of course Sylvester, who I just knew from television, and there they all were, and I sat there, sort of and we had the read through, and I'm turning to me afterwards and saying, "Oh, you've got a lovely big part, haven't you, darling?" And I thought, "Yeah, I have." I was quite amazed. And then as for the patches, well, I actually came up with most of the idea for the costume because Andrew Cartmel, the script editor, liked what I was actually wearing to the read through, which was some army surplus shorts, some Doc Martin shoes, and a stripy t-shirt. And he said, "Oh, I think that would be the kind of thing Ace would wear." So I went with that, and I did some research, and I found that very trendy girls were wearing those jackets with patches on. So the designer and I, Richard Croft, we went up to Oxford Street and we bought the jacket, and we got, most of the patches, the kind of the sew-on ones, we got them from a stall in Oxford Street, just a tiny little shop there. And then I added a few of my own badges, or pins as you call them, including the Blue Peter ones, which it's a very famous children's program in England where you can write into the program with ideas or whatever, and they send you a badge if they feel that you deserve one. And they were my own very own 2 badges. And it was quite funny because the first day actually on set in the studio, they had to check whether they were my badges, because otherwise I wouldn't have been allowed to wear them if I'd just sort of bought them off the peg, you know. So the Blue Peter office were very fierce about who was allowed to wear Blue Peter badges and who wasn't.
Okay. Last question. Do you have any details that that on the Sarah Jane's Adventures appearance that never happened? Did you have anything on that?
Yeah, well, what happened was I was interviewed by Benjamin Cook, who's a very good friend of Russell T Davis's, for Doctor Who magazine. And we met in a restaurant in London, and he said to me, "Oh, before we start the interview, I just have to say that Russell T Davis has a message for you." He said, "I emailed him last night saying who I was going to meet today, and he said, oh, please say hello, and she's always been very supportive of the new Doctor Who," which I, absolutely, I am a full supporter of the new Doctor Who. And then said, tell her that she would have been next in the Sarah Jane Adventures, because they always got very good ratings when one of the old companions, like with Jo Grant, for example, when she turned up. So I was so surprised because I didn't know anything about it. And he'd had this idea that this smart sports car was going to draw up outside Sarah Jane's house, and you'd see the door open and a pair of legs would get out with high heels, and you'd see the back view of this person walking up to her front door, and then she was going to open the door, and you'd see from her point of view me now, and I was this sort of high-powered, almost like businesswoman. But then he said it wouldn't be too long before she'd be back in her Doc Martens beating up Daleks again and things like that.
Okay, well, yeah, I know you have to run, and so that's the last question I have for you. That was from my friend Philip, who's from London, UK.
Well, I just would like to say thank you for all these amazing questions that you've got together for me. It's great to be able to answer your questions, and thank you so much for having me on and for supporting the show. And also, I really hope that you'll have a look at the website for Strangeness in Space and support us with our new venture.
Well, I'm kind of hoping sometime, maybe in the future. It's very hard to nail you down. You're so busy. I'd love to have you back for a Q&A panel sometime in the future if it's possible.
I'd absolutely love to. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, well, until then, take care. I just want to thank you profusely for being on. I've always been an admirer of yours, from the classic series, and I'm really hoping Strangeness in Space does incredibly well.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Okay, until next time, folks, everyone have a great evening, and thank you again, Sophie Aldred.
Thank you.